All right. Well, hello, sippers. Welcome back to another episode of LeaderSips, where we grow in our leadership with tips while we sip. I am so excited to welcome someone today, a really good friend that I've known for, gosh, like 25 years, and former Disney colleague as well, and just a leader that is going to share with us, I know, from the heart and give us some great tips and today. But first, let's get to know Matt Ebeling. Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello,
Uh,
Carlin.
Hello. It's kind of funny to talk to you like this because it's like
No, we're
we know
buddies.
each other so well, but I'm just thrilled. Thank you. I know you're so busy, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to chat with this audience because you are definitely one of the leaders that I have so much respect for, and humans I have so much respect for and admire that your heart and what you do with your teams and how you've grown throughout the years. So I just know that you're gonna drop some knowledge on this group today for sure. But
Thank you.
before we dive into that, a little bit for everybody to get to know Matt. Matt is a graduate of Pepperdine University Seaver College, class of '99. What? And I'm going to say this wrong, so you can correct me. Grazie a Dio,
Oh,
business
yeah,
school.
you pretty much, yeah. It's grazie a
Ah,
Dio. Grazie a
yay!
Dio.
Grazie. Prego. Okay. So class of 2020.
That's
And
right.
you've actually been a part of the Pepperdine family for over 40 years. I love that your dad, John, was graduated from there and sister Katie graduated from there. So you definitely are a Pepperdine family. And some of his earliest memories as a child included attending some of the alumni events with his family, playing with the students that were on the student alumni organization. So what a cool thing. But you have that's home for you, but then when I met you, it was at Disneyland, geez, in the 90s. Um,
The
we were
1900s.
the night back in the 1900s, yes, where we got to work together. And I know Matt, he was a stage performer, a TV host, a sales manager, special event producer, communications manager, media spokesperson, and a Disney ambassador, which Disney Ambassadors, for those of you who don't know what that program is, that is a 60-year program that was started with Walt Disney himself. And I know once an ambassador, always an ambassador. So I know it's so cool for you to make it back each year for candlelight and a lot of the meetups as part of that ambassador family. But they really do represent the cast, the company, in the community for their years of term. So that is an honor to be an ambassador. I know very few people get that opportunity. So it was very cool to see you there. But you left the mouse. You left the mouse in '08. You left us all behind, and we miss you so much. But then you came back home, and I love it that you did go back home to Pepperdine serving in alumni relations for Seaver College. So talk about full circle, right? And George Pepperdine College. And now, drum roll, you are the Associate Vice Chancellor for Alumni Affairs. You lead a fantastic team of alumni relations professionals whose focus is serving the alumni of Pepperdine's six schools, inspiring them to serve others, build meaningful community, foster lifelong relationships. And if that isn't leadership and showing and displaying leadership, then I don't really know what is. So I love that. And you also get to you live where you work and you work where you live there on the campus, which is amazing. With also a wonderful human, his wife Kim, and son Sawyer and daughter Aubrey. And you get to share campus life with the people that you lead every day. So, again, welcome, Mr. Ebling. So happy to have you here today. But so proud of you, my friend. Like you've done some really incredible things from the time that we met as like baby frontline cast members, at Disneyland to what you're doing now. So I would love to hear more in your own words, just how that journey has been for you. Any highlights that you'd like to share with us?
Oh man, yeah. It has been a journey, and I'm so grateful that Carlin, you and I have had so much of that journey together. The working at the Magic Kingdom was incredible, and did played a huge role in shaping who I am and how I approach the world. In fact, I don't tell this story often, and I don't even know if Carlin knows this story. We'll have
Oh.
to see. So I actually got into Disney as the result of an elaborate con. So,
No, I have not heard this story. This will be good. I'm
all right, I'll
sipping
try
and
to keep this
listening.
short. So, I was a 17-year-old high school graduate, And a buddy of mine that I went to high school with, his name is John Levinson. Uh, he was a float driver in the original electrical parade on Main Street in Disneyland. And he was pretty outgoing, but I was not. I was actually painfully shy in high school and introverted.
You?
And yep, and I had a really hard time talking to other people. I
Wow.
had a couple of friends, and that's about it in high school. And I was kind of petrified of social situations. And this friend John knew this, and out of compassion, decided to concoct a huge lie to get me into something more social. So he said, "Hey, you know what? I know you're looking for a summer job, between high school and college. I'm thinking about transferring out of the parade float, area and into something else. Why don't you come with me and we'll fill out an application together and I'll get you a summer job." He's like, "Don't worry, we're going to fill out an application for working on the machinery of the attractions backstage. You won't have to talk to anybody. You can just work on mechanics. It'll be great." I said, "Oh, that sounds great." So I get in the car with him and we drive to Disneyland and he drives me backstage. And I was amazed. It was backstage Disneyland. And he parks the car and we walk through all this catacomb of buildings and open this door and the door slams shut behind us. And suddenly I'm in a wondrous place that's hardwood floors, mirrors on every wall, this kind of weird bar about waist high around every wall, and about 120 people stretching and jumping around and smiling and getting ready for something big. And I'm thinking, what are we doing? Where's the application? I'm wearing jeans and a polo shirt, not dressed for anything other than a pen and paper. And he said, "Don't hate me. I'm sorry. I took you to an audition for the entertainment division, and we're going to do some dancing and acting. And don't worry, it'll be great. You're going to be great." And I'm like, "I'm a shy baseball player. I have never danced or acted. This is terrible." So I panicked. I was looking for the exit. Then I realized he was my ride home. And something told me to just take a step in faith and be present and go for this thing. And long story short, after several hours of dancing and improv acting and all sorts of shenanigans that they put us through, I realized I had a talent for entertaining people. And I had no idea where it came from. I got a call back to come back the next day. And before I knew it, I was being hired into the entertainment division as a performer in the theme parks and writing a really awkward letter to my current employer, because I worked at a water park as a lifeguard instructor at the time, saying, "I'm going to go dance and act at Disneyland." And they thought it was a joke, and it wasn't. And that set the stage for not only an incredible career that blessed me in a thousand ways, but also was this turning point to my self-confidence and realizing that I had strengths and talents that could make the lives of others better. And so that was the magical
Wow.
start to my Disney career.
I have not heard that story. I had no idea that someone bait and switched you, basically.
Yep, hardcore. I forgave him, but
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about that? I feel like there's a leadership lesson in that of your friend John, was it John?
yep.
That maybe, we see people, sometimes a spark in somebody that they don't see, right? And I think part of what we do as leaders is try to pull people out of their comfort zones and where they think, no, no, this is me and I'm comfortable here. This is where I need to be. But often that's what we look for when we lead people is but there's more to you that I can see that sometimes we don't see in ourselves. So obviously he saw that in you because honestly, you were one of the best performers I ever worked with. And when you said I was a shy guy, introverted guy, I'm like, what? Who? What?
Yeah,
I
nobody
think,
believes me
yeah,
who knows me now. So yeah, that
no,
was formative and did teach me a lesson about how you can be tuned into the potential of others in ways that they don't see, and you can play a part in helping other people discover the gifts and talents that are already inside them, and fan the flame and let them get joy out of watching them discover themselves. It's so that happened to me, and I hope that I've had the chance to do that with others since. But working in entertainment was incredible. It really brought me out of my shell, taught me a lot about focusing on making other people happy, and that kind of humble approach uh, to serving people. And so I did the seasonal performing roles through college, and what a blessing that was. And then I graduated from Pepperdine, and I thought, gosh, I don't even know exactly what I want to do, but I know I love the culture here at the Disneyland Resort, the people, what we're setting out to do here, I want more. And so I was lucky enough to get a temporary gig in sales. It was probably the last place I would have chosen to try to work is in sales. But it was an opportunity, and I was grateful for it. And this is where I learned some of my greatest leadership lessons. It was this first job as a 21-year-old in the sales division at Disneyland. And I will protect the names of those that I'm going to speak of because the lessons I learned in leadership were not necessarily from great leaders modeling great leadership, but rather struggling leaders that maybe weren't making the right moves and did not make me feel great. And those lessons taught me volumes. So, I had a leader right out of the gate as a 21-year-old who didn't know what I was doing. And this was, as Carlin said, this was like the 1900s. This was a long time ago. Technology was still budding. Email was still a new thing, believe it or not. Fax machines were being used daily for regular business operations.
There was no
But
social media.
Oh my goodness, but I didn't understand any of these things. So I'm coming in fresh, just learning how to be in an office. And I had a leader, unfortunately, who, criticized me in front of others, who took
Mm,
credit for my work when I did something well,
yikes.
made jokes in front of other people about my age and my lack of experience, and that I was green. And, you know, um,
Terrible.
and all these things, at face value, it would have been really tempting to view that whole experience as a waste of time or something that I wish had never happened that I could wipe off the board. But in time, I realized that experience, and it was only like a year, but it taught me so much more than I can even express. Uh,
Mm,
by being made to feel that way by a leader, I learned probably more about great leadership than even those that model good leadership,
oh
because
yeah.
because I experienced destructive leadership, right?
Mm,
And through that, I gained a really deep well of empathy that I carried forward. And I vowed to myself, I will never make someone feel that way
mm,
when it's my turn to be a leader. And that set the tone for kind of an empathetic approach to leadership for me because of how I had been made to feel. And so I think it set the stage for me being more tuned in to how others are made to feel as a result of my own leadership and um, trying to be conscious of that.
yeah, I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm with you. I've learned just as much, if not more, from the bad leaders, quote unquote bad leaders, that I've had throughout, over the years than I have even the good leaders and the great leaders. Because yeah, I mean it's a devastating thing to have to go through. I've had a similar experience with a leader just making me feel so small and so unworthy and so devalued and all of those things that yeah, I love Matt that but you took that instead of emulating that and becoming like that person because honestly so many people could see that and be like, "Oh, is that how you get ahead? Is that how you get promoted? Well, then I'm going to just be like that person." And I've seen that happen too and it breaks my heart because then you just keep fostering and the ripple effect is real and you're fostering, bad leaders begetting bad leaders, but good leaders beget good leaders, right? So I'm so happy that I'm sad that you went through that, but good that you took that and went, no, 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 I don't want to be like that. I want to be like this because I understand and know how that feels as opposed to the other way around. Could have gone either way. So kudos to you that you saw that and it led to more of that more empathetic leadership style. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I still view it as a blessing, and I still, since then I've extended a lot of grace and forgiveness to that leader too, who I realized looking back was also young in her career and learning and
Mm,
growing, right? And so, I think forgiveness and grace are two kind of key aspects of
yes.
me going through this, machine of following and leading. And so
Yeah.
contrast that experience, right, with the very next role that I had at Disney, which was in, special events, still under the sales division, but now instead of kind of selling the events, I was on a team that helped uh, facilitate or execute events at the theme parks. And so just contrasting these two experiences. Now, this leader uh, believed in me, and he made it clear with every word and every action, whether I was in the room to hear it or not, that he believed in me, and it was consistent. He helped me understand new information when I was confused, when I was still learning. He led by example. He helped me grow in areas where I wasn't as strong or experienced. He genuinely wanted to see me succeed, and he believed that I would, and I felt it every moment. And as a result, I felt valuable to the team, and perhaps even more importantly, I felt confident in myself. And so, you kind of look at those two. So I learned really huge lessons all in the span of like a 2 year period, going from one position to the next. And so now I had kind of different perspectives that, again, I could carry forward. I think at this early stage, I was still quite young, and I probably wasn't even fully processing some of these lessons at the time, but lots of seeds were being planted that I think did kind of grow and get harvested later.
I love that. It's so important. We have to reflect, right? Like, I feel like, I don't know about you, I feel like the further I get along in my career, the more important it is to reflect back on those life lessons. Like, you don't live in the past, you don't dwell in it. That's not healthy. But reflecting on the people along the way who either gave you those lessons where it was like, ooh, that was a tough lesson to learn. And knowing that you were at, like, I know for me too, I look back and I go, yeah, I knew nothing when I was baby comm specialist at Disneyland, and thank God for the mentors that came alongside me too and taught me how to use email. Same thing, taught me what CC mail was, if you
Yeah,
remember
CZ
that.
Mail.
Yeah, it's like crazy to think about it now, but I feel so blessed that, I did have some mentors along the way who didn't just like, oh, sink or swim kid that's, 21 years old that doesn't know anything straight out of college. I think that's something that I'm actually, also aware of in my own current, in my own current workplace too. And I'm sure you encounter this too, right? You have college students around you. It's like, how are we pouring into them as this generation that is going to be entering the workforce? And remember like where we were when we were just coming out of school and not knowing a culture of a company or a culture of, how the work environment or protocols or how do I email, senior vice president, whatever. So, like, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure, like, you're drawing probably from your own experiences too of that. But I feel like some people forget what that's like and that
Oh,
moment.
oh yeah. I mean, you're totally right. So, how many of you listening or watching have ever said, "Oh man," you look back on a time when you were a teenager or your 20s or whatever it is, and say, "Oh, if only I had known. I wish I had known
Mm.
this lesson then. I wish I could go back in time and tell myself, how it is, and I probably would have avoided that terrible pitfall I stepped in, or that failure, or that embarrassment, or whatever it is. Oh, if I'd only known." So we don't have time machines, obviously. Well, not yet. Um,
Maybe AI will figure that out for
my
us.
side hustle, I'm working on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we don't have time machines, but in a way we do, because the younger generation around us is like the time machine. It's like
Mhm.
our younger selves, and if we frame it that way, and we compassionately look at those who are coming up behind us as ourselves when we were younger,
Mhm.
and say, oh, this is such a precious opportunity to share some of the learnings from our mistakes and failures, because we all have a treasure trove of those, and use it to help someone else, perhaps have an easier time or learn that lesson in a different way. Trust me, they're still going to make plenty of failures. You're not going to save them from everything.
Oh, yeah.
But how rewarding it is, for me at least, I'll speak for myself, and working in the college setting with the undergrads, all these 18 to 21-year-olds constantly coming through, and they're just all these younger versions of me and my friends, and it's a wonderful opportunity to say, oh, finally, I have a chance to help some people in some of the ways that I was helped when I was coming up.
I love that. Yes, make sure they don't reply all to emails. Because I will tell you that is one incident in my early on where I learned a really tough lesson. I embarrassed like a director because I thought I was being funny about a mistake on something, but I hit reply all to lots of
Yeah.
different partners and kind of got chewed out a bit by that person. And at the time, I was like, what did I do? I was just kidding. But honestly, that lesson stuck with me. And to this day, now I've had to have similar coaching conversations where I'm like, be careful of reply, the reply all and how do you communicate and all those things. So yeah, you take those lessons with you in a good way, right? You
Oh,
take the
totally. I
yeah.
feel like everyone who's of a certain age, who came up in the early days of email has some sort of horror story about a reply all that they accidentally did. So yeah, it's pretty relatable.
I know it's wild. It's wild. What is something, as we think about those tough learnings along the way and maybe moments, because we have to all learn as leaders, right? Like you said, we're all on a learning journey, and I believe till the day we die, we're learning and we're growing. And as long as we have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, right? So that we are constantly looking at everything as an opportunity to learn. What's something that you look back on that you think it was something that like, wow, I learned a lot from that moment, that situation, that conversation that stuck with you over time too?
That's a great question, I think.
It's
I
probably a
feel
lot
like,
of them. It's
yeah,
probably,
there's so many.
um,
I mean, I think for me, sometimes what teaches me a lot are the moments where I slip as a leader, so let me say I've grown to value more and more the importance of listening well to
mm,
to others. I love to talk, and that can be a strength, like on a podcast, for instance, but it can also be a terrible inhibitor to connecting with people and understanding other people, understanding how our team can be most effective. And there are definitely times I'm trying to work on my self-awareness, but there are definitely times where I catch myself doing too much of talking, not enough listening. And every now and then I get painfully aware of that when a team member expresses that they don't feel heard and they're hurt because they felt passed over on an idea or disregarded on an idea that they had, that it wasn't considered, that their voice wasn't counted in what we were doing. And though in those moments, it's kind of like a snap me back to anchor, that I've drifted from, that reminds me, oh my goodness, it's so critical that that voice is heard across the systems that we work with and the teams that we work with. And that's not to say that, in every organization and every structure, that every decision made in that organization is going to be the result of everyone's feedback winning out. But it's so critical that people are heard and considered in decision making. And there are times where I don't get that right. And I at least hope that my awareness of those will continue to improve, because it does matter to me that people feel heard. And then I have to kind of go back to, again, that place of empathy where I recall times where I didn't feel heard. And it's lousy. It's lousy when you feel like you've got great ideas and things to contribute, and your leaders or your colleagues just aren't considering it because they're too concerned about themselves, or where their attention's at the moment. And so, all that to say, none of us are perfect, as leaders or followers. And it's critical that we extend grace to ourselves and forgiveness to ourselves in those moments where we do fail. And I think for me, I'm really hard on myself when I fall short as a leader. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but when I make a mistake, and especially if I know it made someone feel bad, I'm very hard on myself. And so one of the things that I'm working on is acknowledging that I'm a human being. Humans have emotions, allowing myself to feel lousy over that for a moment, right? And
mm,
then extending grace to myself, forgiving myself, and then reflecting on what it is that I've learned from that fall, that misstep, so that I can get it better next time, or that I can make it right with a team member. It's not uncommon for me to come back to a team member and say, that meeting last week, you said this, I kind of glazed over it. I wasn't terribly respectful in that moment. That was a mistake, and I apologize, and I'm working on it. And I try to make sure my team members hear those words from me when I am aware of something where I fell short. And that way, I don't know, there's, ideally speaking, there's a lot more kind of mutual grace that flows back and forth when we each make mistakes, as opposed to this kind of outdated concept of the leader is impeccable, and and doesn't make mistakes, and they're just looking to catch people doing things wrong. Like I'd rather kind of try to catch people doing things right, and then I have a culture where there's grace that flows both ways.
Oh my gosh, Matt, I love that. I wish more leaders had that kind of humility. And I really respect you for also you're leading by example in that sense too. You're showing your students, your team, people that leaders aren't perfect. And nor should any of us strive for perfection. It literally doesn't exist, right? Like one's perfect as another's imperfect. And it's all relative in that kind of sense. And but it also shows into empathy. And I feel like that's something, and you tell me, like, how do you really continue to bring empathy to life, especially in such a world where you feel like there's a lot of division, there's a lot of, I don't know, like I grew up in an era where you could agree to disagree and everyone could still go, hang out after work and have a coffee or whatever. But I feel like the world's, so heated in that divisiveness as opposed to looking for unification. Like, how does that play out where you live, where you work, and any circles in your life? And then how can we as leaders, be more of that, unifying and empathetic voice, I guess, too.
Yeah, this is a big topic, and it extends beyond the office.
Yeah.
You kind of made reference to this, but the obvious elephant in the room is we're in a point in our history where politics have divided us in some pretty like sometimes violent ways,
Yeah.
and working at a university, we often talk that around here that gosh, when we're doing it right, when we're being the best place of higher learning that we can be, it should be a place where people can come together and safely
Hmm.
talk about where they're coming from, the feelings or beliefs or perspectives or worldviews that they're wrestling with, and or even those that they're very convicted in, and to be safe in expressing those because they're in an environment where civil discourse is valued
Yeah.
above
I love it.
being right.
Yes.
And so, but unfortunately, I feel like more often than not, what I'm experiencing is a lot of people so dead set on being right that they're
Mm.
missing out on the gift of seeing other people more clearly and growing closer to other people by knowing more deeply where they're coming from. And I don't know, I think I'm probably guilty of this too, but I think there's times where I think that really being open and accepting of how other people feel and believe, it somehow attacks my own beliefs. Put it another
Hmm.
way, you know, that I somehow have to change my own convictions in order to be open and understanding of their convictions.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not true. I mean, we can and many do um, prize community and relationship over trying to make everyone else believe the way that they do. And so I have strong convictions. I have strong convictions of faith. I have strong convictions of how I'd like to see the world. But I also recognize that humans are innately diverse, and if we all were exactly the same, what a terribly boring and static world we would have, right? So I think there's value to be gained by understanding other perspectives, and that applies just as much, to your office team as it does to the rest of the world and social media and all the mess that we watch people come at each other with, right?
Oh, I know. Social media. It's like a blessing and a curse all at the same time, but well, first of all, thank you for your response. And I 100% agree with you. And, I'm a person of strong faith too and convictions as well. I've talked about it here on my podcast as well. And what I find so fascinating is that just because I can still love on you, like if I follow Jesus's example, I mean, he hung out with literally everybody, people, and it is way more interesting. I don't want to hang out with a bunch of robots. And if I hang out with just people like me, I'm literally not learning anything. And you just start creating an echo chamber for yourself. And I think that's what the algorithms are doing on social media. It's like I always tell people on social. I follow everybody. I intentionally disrupt my own algorithm. And so I follow CNN and Fox News. I follow all the people, all the different things, because I don't want an echo chamber of people who just think like me. I have opinions, of course. I have strong convictions. I have, what I value, but I want to be curious, not judgmental, to quote Ted Lasso. That was weird. Sorry, I came out of nowhere, but I'm like, but I actually really like that. I love Ted Lasso. Season one. I don't know about the other season, but season one has some good leadership lessons in it. But be curious, not judgmental, I think is a good way to live because there are definitely times where it's like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. And I don't know if you guys experience this too, but it's like when you're brainstorming, you want the most diverse, points of view and people and ages and, color, skin colors and all that in a room because you're going to come up with the best product, the best idea, the best campaign, whatever, fill in the blank for whatever you do for a living, right? But then it's funny, like when it becomes such a passionate topic like politics or religion or this, it's like then suddenly it's not okay to have those same voices at the table. And so for some reason that emotion kind of takes over. And I feel like as leaders, we've got to like take that step back and sort of not compartmentalize yourself to the point where you're not honest with who you are. But I've played the role of moderator in team settings because I believe what inclusion really is everyone has a seat at the table. And that means everyone. And that means people that I don't agree with and they don't agree with me, and that's okay. But I want everybody to feel heard because if I feel like as a leader that I'm like, well, this is what I think, then I'm immediately putting a wall up for someone else to go, oh, well, then I can't think what I think because they feel so strongly about this, right? So I feel like, yeah, for leaders, we've got to make sure that we're also kind of walking that line to make sure, and I love what you said, like every voice matters, everybody's opinion matters. And I, like you, am a talker and an extrovert. And I have to sometimes check myself too, because I can easily be the first loudest person in the room to start having an opinion about something. And it's like, oh, I don't have to be the first person to say something, right? Like let people talk. But I do need to make sure I'm fostering an environment that feels psychologically safe, right? That for people to express themselves. So love that, Matt. That's such a great example and good leadership that I think more leaders need to learn. Like, don't be the people who are, standing up for whoever's voice, especially when it's someone you disagree with. Frankly, that shouldn't matter. They should still have the right to have their opinions, right? That's what freedom's about. So,
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that, you I guess showing appreciation for my leadership wisdom and whatnot, but really anything that I'm saying is the result of the things that I've learned from others and
mm.
other situations and teams that I've like opened myself up to. And even back when in my very first role, this even predates Disney. So when I was like a 15-year-old working at a Wild Rivers water park in Irvine,
Oh my
California.
gosh, I remember Wild Rivers. That's
Yeah.
funny. Oh
And
wow.
what a great experience that was. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was 15. I was just glad to get 4.25 an hour to wear a bathing suit for
Right.
7 hours and talk
That's
to cute
awesome.
girls and stuff. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
but what I learned in that even early on there was
Mm,
that there were leaders all around me, and if I just paid attention, if I just
yeah.
studied what they were doing, how they were talking, how they cared for others, how they managed stress when things went wrong, what did they do? How did they react to that? I had leaders all around me, so even as a 15-year-old, I remember being aware of how much I didn't know, but just quietly observing around
Mm,
me all the time how other leaders approached things. And I would learn just like we talked about earlier, I would learn from the leaders that were making mistakes and oh,
mm,
that's interesting. And I would learn from the leaders that were crushing it with how they united people in common goals and harnessed energy and created outcomes. And even then, you could see it. So I think being observant of leadership around you all the time, considering yourself a lifelong student of leadership, and knowing that leadership pops up everywhere you go, not just in your office. There are acts of leadership happening everywhere, and if you can just be more aware and study. Think of yourself as a research student, and when you're going around looking for artifacts and evidence of leadership elsewhere, that's like free classes. That's like going to college. I mean, you could take those with you, reflect on them, and that can be absorbed into your own life.
I love that. I also think, to your point, grabbing all that evidence, but then assessing it too, right? Like making sure that you're taking what you're seeing, but you're also applying like leadership principles to it to make sure, because I think sometimes it's easy to absorb. And I don't know, I run into this all the time in my work environment where people who maybe get ahead, but for the wrong reasons and doing the wrong things. And then it's really hard. I feel like I'm unwiring my professional interns and people coming into the workforce just right out of school to say, I know it seems that way, but I promise you, truth always wins. Things always come out. That person was not going to have anybody following them, lifting them up, supporting them, and they will fall off that pedestal at some point. And I have seen that happen many times. But it's hard because when you look and you think, wow, but they're getting promoted and they're, the favorite, or they're, like climbing up that ladder, it does get difficult to think, well, then I should be cutthroat and throw people under the bus and backstab and get there. And it doesn't matter, just climb, climb, climb. And I try to always like bring them back to no, it's about integrity. Keep your integrity. It's about character first. And don't, so when you see people acting that way, making sure that you're not seeing that as the means to end, that you're seeing the how you get there is just as important, if not more important, as the what you're getting rewarded with, because it does go around. What goes around comes around, right? We have to see that and believe that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, this idea of kind of looking to your left and right and seeing people advance around you and doing so in a way that doesn't feel good to you, that you don't see
Mm,
yourself in, and so there's this, you know, um, scenario of a situation of it's a matter of fairness and justice and
yes.
like that's not fair. Like I'm doing the right things. I'm being ethical and selfless, and yet look at this person, doing so much better and being recognized, and they're taking credit for this other person's work. It's not even their work. They're getting promoted for, all the things. So we see that, and gosh, I will say that is a slippery slope trap to fall into where your attention starts to go toward others, toward situations that you don't have control over, that you don't have influence over. And it's a tough one. And so, I mean, my response to that is as your career goes on, I think it's critical to take an inventory of what you value in the people that you work with, the people to your left and right, your colleagues, the people who work for you, your leaders, who you're working for, and decide like what are the characteristics of my team members that I most value and treasure that make me enjoy my work, that make me feel like I'm in a place where I trust people, where I feel fabulous about the outcomes we're doing together as a team, whatever the characteristics are that you value. It's kind of like when you're a kid and your parents get really kind of involved in who your friend circles are. It's like, oh, don't hang out with those kids. They're making bad choices. They're the ones that are always in trouble. They're not getting good
Right.
grades. Because parents know that when you are in a formative part of your life and you hang out with friends that make certain choices, you're like way more likely to make those same choices because you want to fit in. And the same thing I think applies to our professional careers, right? So we have to be confident about what we value and the way we want to show up in as human beings in the workforce, and then align ourselves with other people who also share those values. And that might mean tough choices. That might means I need to get out of this toxic environment and go to a place where, you know, people share the way that I believe and how we should serve others.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. Didn't someone say, I don't know who it was, you're like the summation of the five people you spend the most time with or something like that? Like that's
Yeah,
the
I've heard
reflection.
that before. I don't remember who said it, but
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's a lot of truth in it.
Right? That's so true. So when you think about those leadership characteristics, what are your top characteristics of what you think is makes a good leader?
Gosh, I mean, I think leaders that are open and communicative. Uh, you could use the word transparent if you want, but I also acknowledge that I don't expect every leader to share everything that they are dealing with, right? There is a certain degree of, there's certain aspects of decision making and whatnot that doesn't need to go to the whole organization, but a general sense of openness and transparency and communicativeness that tells your team members, your subordinates, your colleagues that that you can be trusted, that you are in it for their benefit and for the team's benefit, that you're not hiding something. I
Mm.
think, sometimes when I see a team having trouble, it's often because they feel like they don't know what's happening above them. They feel
Mm.
like they're being cut out of communication about of events. They are hearing updates about their own team from other sources and not their own
Ugh,
leaders and whatnot. And sometimes it's not even an intentional omission of information from leaders. They just don't think that that it's valuable to be more transparent. Whatnot. So anyway, I would say trust is this core thing that I think I value more than anything between my leaders, between my colleagues, between subordinates. Trust is key, and for trust to happen, there has to be open communication. There has to be a degree of vulnerability, right? So we
no,
have
for
to
sure.
work steadily in our relationships, whether personal or professional, toward increased vulnerability where we can share more and more with each other. Does that mean in every work environment you're going to share every personal thing? No, but in at least to the degree that it's appropriate, saying how can we be as vulnerable with each other as possible in how we're feeling, sitting, experiencing our work situation together, um, letting each other in on information, keeping people connected, because that trust, I think, is fuel for good impact. Um,
Yeah.
on the other side, if trust is not there, people start darting. They withhold information. They start having anxiety over who around them might be um, doing something that could hurt them. It just is poisonous to a team. So I think trust is key, and for trust to happen, there has to be really good communication and a touch of appropriate vulnerability.
Definitely. I could agree more. What do you think, like, what for people who don't trust, because I'm sure we've all seen this in our work lives of people who just kind of get territorial, kind of keep things close. Like, why do people do that? What do you think is the motivation behind that? Because keeping things close, not communicating. I mean, to your point, sometimes people just don't and they don't realize what they're doing. But sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of a power trip, right? Like people are thinking knowledge is power, which I feel like is so 1980s, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I have a perspective on this. I feel like a lot of leaders who are more guarding and trying to maintain kind of control of information and power
Mhm.
are, I think, often are doing it from a place of insecurity. And I think some of what feeds into that is an old-fashioned mentality that as a leader, we need to be perceived as the one who's better at all the skills of the job than anyone who works under them. We are, uh, above reproach, and we are the best at all the things that it takes for that team to be successful.
Mhm.
And so when they feel like someone who reports to them is really doing an amazing job at something, it can feel threatening to them because it's like, oh no, now this person's going to get credit and they're going to come after my job, and I need to be known as the one who's steering the ship and is responsible for all the successes, right? So contrast that with what I would say a more modern, healthy way of thinking, which is to say, okay, human beings are each imbued with unique, distinct gifts and skills. We are beautifully diverse. I know it sounds cliche, but we are. We each have these skills and gifts. Many of us, it's a lifelong pursuit discovering what those gifts are. Some of us figuring them out real early. But I think when we view a team as a collection of gifts that together form a body, so I think about, in scripture, what Paul would say about the church being, one body with different parts, and how, the toe can't operate without the wrist, and the hand can't is nothing without the leg. And the same applies to us as humans as we come together to create things together. No one person is going to be all the body parts, no matter how hard they try. No one leader is ever going to be all the strengths. And when leaders acknowledge that, I would say reality, and instead say, how can I shift my attention toward hiring and supporting and encouraging people who have strengths that I don't have that add to the collective strengths of the team? How can I create the dream team of people that have all the body parts, that have all the skills, um, and 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 be okay with some of those people being better at things than they are, because together the outcome is going to be incredible. Then guess what? The team's going to thrive. And guess what? You as a leader are going to be recognized for your role in curating all those strengths, right? And so, but I think a lot of people don't see it that way. They don't see that by celebrating and honoring and curating strengths, it actually does make them look good,
Yes.
as opposed to it being a threat to them. And that's unfortunate. So I'm hoping more people over time learn.
Oh, so well said, my friend. So well said. And I do too. I hope and I wish that people, and you're so right, where it comes from a place of insecurity. I think because some of those bad leaders I was talking about, I'm like, when you reflect back on what was quote unquote bad about them, it's like, if you have some empathy even towards them, it's like, wow, they were very insecure or miserable or feared for their job or whatever. And you can at least, to your point, have a little bit of grace, even though it doesn't excuse the behaviors. Like it's not cool for them to, not be good leaders, not support you, not all those things. It doesn't excuse it, but at least it explains, right, a bit of that. And then again, to not continue to have that same way of doing things. I wish more people, and I love like how you've said this too, is I wish more people would just be the leaders they would like to have. If you stop and just think about like, well, who would you like to have as a leader? Like, not a person, not an individual person, but what kind of a leader? If you just stop and think about that, I think people would be more self-reflective, like, oh, well, if I want to act like the leader that I would want, then everything you're saying is exactly the way we should be acting, as leaders. But it's funny to me that people don't make that connection in their day to day because, we get in our own heads, our own securities, our own issues and whatnot. So as leaders, we need to constantly be checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves, as one might say in the old 1900s. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And I'll just tie this back full circle to
mm,
something I said earlier, which is, yeah, I've thrown a lot at you, and it makes it sound like I know everything and what I'm doing, and I've got it all figured out, right? And of course, that's not the case. And anybody who's ever reported to me would listen to this and be like, and the
I
reality
mean, you
is,
are human, Matt. I'm sorry
yeah,
to
I
break
mean,
it to you. You are
yeah,
human. I'm
yeah,
human.
the reality is we're all, ideally continuing to pursue the best versions of
Mm,
ourselves, and I'm committed to that, for the benefit of those that
yeah.
are in my circle, and I want people to be better, for knowing me, and better for my
Mm.
leadership, than before they met me. I want that. Do I always do it right? No, of course not. But I'm always committed to learning and growing through it. And again, we have to extend grace to ourselves when we fall short.
Yes. Amen. Amen, brother. I love it. Well, I feel like you have dropped so much knowledge and so much amazing wisdom here. But I want to ask you just like a few fun questions too. I mean, what day in and day out, what's a fun part of your day? Like what brings joy to you that on a daily day basis?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, the fun parts of my day are when I step away from the keyboard and I walk out and just take in the campus life and the dynamic nature of that. And kind of tying that into some of our conversations earlier, when I walk out and I see all these undergrads, it zaps me back to that time in my life that was so formative, and there's just so much hope and energy and love, uh, throughout all of it, and so much opportunity to connect with young adults in ways that, can help them, but also it's just a pleasure to watch it, unfold, and to see all the possibilities, ahead, knowing that these men and women are figuring out who they are, and before long they're going to go out in the world and do some of those amazing things in history, right? And there's something very encouraging about that and life-giving to that. So I did the same things at Disneyland. I remember just kind of leaving the desk and just walking through the theme park in the middle of the day and watching the families come together, watching some of the best memories of their lives unfold. And so that's one of my favorite things. That's what gives me joy, sort of watching humanity and all the love and hope and beauty of it kind of unfold before me.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, we have to remind ourselves sometimes to do that, right? It's easy to get stuck in the computer or stuck heads down and to your own task lists or I have to be doing this. And but yeah, reminding like what we do and why we do it. I'm sure that helps you fuel you too when you walk around the campus as to who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. So you're also a dad of two. What's something fun that you like to do with your kids?
Oh man, right now they're super into sports. It's kind of like their
Mm,
zone.
that's
So
cool.
my daughter plays soccer. She's in middle school, and my son, oh my gosh, he's so big now. I'm trying to savor these kids while they're kids, but oh, it's happening so quickly. So he's 14 now. He plays high school baseball. He's like 5'10" and a half, and he's huge. And
What? I
yeah,
can't even believe it.
yeah.
High
And so,
school.
so just,
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
right now, I'm just relishing this precious season where they kind of still want to be around me a little bit and I can celebrate them discovering their strengths and watching them kind of flourish and
Mm,
both socially and physically and academically and all the things. So I'm just so grateful to be a dad, which is, you know, for Kim and I, it's humbling because we're aware that only so much of our influence is responsible for the human beings that they are. You know, we really kind of trust God to have their hands on them. But what we're seeing is just so beautiful. So just yeah, I love hanging out with them. Love
awesome.
um, everything from getting together and just playing video games. I hooked up like the old and Nintendo to the
Oh,
TV last
fun.
weekend, and we went through the whole tale of 1980s arcade games
Oh, I
and
love
uh,
it.
and also
I
just being
love it.
out around campus. So living on a college campus is a unique place for kids to grow up, as you might imagine,
I'm
because
sure.
they've got college students all over the place to kind of connect with and learn from. And we had this big rainstorm a few weeks ago, and my son and his buddy, put huge trash bags over their body and poked their head through the top and slid down a rain-slicked
Oh my
grass
God.
slope on the front of the campus, and over and over again. And
Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking, oh my goodness, please don't get in trouble. I don't want to get a
Right.
call from campus
Right.
security. But it's
And don't get hurt. Too much paperwork. Right. No, just kidding.
yeah, but it's great because neither one of them, we don't let them go on social media or anything, and they've
Oh, good for you.
they do a lot of video
Smart.
games and stuff, but
Yeah.
they're so shielded, current at least for now, to that mess of social media
Smart.
and it's just such a joy to watch them want to just go out and play with their friends in the mountains
Right.
and run around and be outside and like we were in the 1900s, Carlin.
Back in the 1900s,
Yeah,
when
my
we
kids are always
actually, yeah,
yeah, the
when we
kids are
actually
always
had
like,
imagination,
yeah,
we
when
could
you
like
actually had
just,
to like think of things to
yeah,
keep yourself occupied with what was
right,
around you. And,
right.
kids are always like, oh, Dad, what was it like being a kid growing up? Like, and I was like, well, it was basically Stranger Things without the monsters. And they're like, got it.
Oh my gosh, that's the best analogy I've heard, but it's so true. It's so true. But it
Yeah.
was fun. It's been interesting to see a little bit come full circle and like the Gen Z and Gen Alphas, some of them are getting dumb phones and like having like digital detoxes. I've seen this on, places. But I'm like, that's good though. Yes, we need that. Don't live your life through the lens of somebody else or, comparison culture is totally the thief of joy, right? So I think that's really smart at your kids' age, especially. Because the teen years are tough anyway. You're trying to figure yourself out. And last thing you need to do is go on there and think, oh, this is reality when people are just putting their
Yeah.
best foot forward on social, right? That's all they're doing. It's a highlights reel. It's not real life. So
Yeah, absolutely.
smart. All right. Last question, then I promise I'll let you get back to work. But this is leadership, so we have to talk about sipping. So what is your favorite beverage? I see you have your coffee cup there. So what's your
Ooh.
favorite sip?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. So I will say, and my wife's gonna hate me for doing this because by telling you where my favorite coffee place is, it might draw more people there and make the line longer. But we love there's a place called Cafe Lux here in Malibu
Oh,
that serves very like artisanal coffee
love
and
it.
they make a mean mocha. I love a mocha, a
Mm,
chocolatey coffee. So that's my go-to. The more caffeine, the better. I'm one of those crazies that drinks caffeine like late into the evening and you know
wow. I'm
eight or nine
impressed.
8 or 9 p.m. And
And you can still sleep?
Yeah, but I'm a night owl, so I don't go to sleep till at least midnight. So I'm
Oh,
good to
okay.
leave it that way.
Wow. I'm a
Yeah,
night owl too. I'm usually up till about 11-ish, but if I drink coffee too late in the day, I just thought it was because I have old lady vibes because I am older than you. But if I drink it too late in the day, I could easily stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning 'cause I love a good strong coffee too.
yeah.
So, oh yeah, you're speaking my language. Well, next time I'm out your direction, I expect you to bring me to Cafe Lux.
Yeah.
So,
Two
bye.
mochas. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds awesome. Well, Matt, thanks again so much for just being here today, sharing all of your leadership advice and wisdom and your heart with us. I really appreciate you. Really love you, my friend. I mean, truly, you're an incredible human, and this has just been a joy to be able to talk to you here too. So, thank you again.
The feeling is mutual, and for those of you listening, it always keep close those who knew you when you were young. It's a treasure.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, fun.
All
Have a good
right.
one. Bye.